Hey YouTube, this is Firewizard23, and I welcome you to another book review. Book review of Mr. Monday by Garth Nix, the first book in his Keys to the Kingdom series. So, this book series, I got introduced to actually by the second book in the series, which we'll get to. But here's the basic premise. This little boy in the middle here is Arthur Penhaligon, who is he's a kid. He's an asthmatic kid who's actually going to end up dying if things just played out the way they were. But while he came to a new school, and he passes out on the field from an asthma attack. His coach is like a real phys ed coach is like a real jerk. He's dying, writhing there, and all of a sudden, two characters appear out of nowhere. A large butler pushing someone in a wheelchair. A guy sitting in the wheelchair who appears very, very I don't care, that sort of thing. This person is the titular Mr. Monday. And Easler is convincing Monday to give him half of his key, an item that he's carrying with him, which appears to be the minute and the hour hand of a clock. So Mr. Monday does acquiesce because they're trying to avoid the wrath of the architect. More on that later. So he does separate his key in the minute and the hour hand, and he gives Arthur the minute hand. Which, the moment the minute hand even touches Arthur, he's immediately cured of his asthmatic attack. I'll call him Easler. He is protesting to Mr. Monday, "You need to give him the other part of the key, sir." Monday starts to get a little suspicious of this, why he's being forced to give up his entire key, and then all of a sudden, Isler starts spouting this very powerful speech, and the two of them mysteriously magically vanish. Arthur, I forget what happens. People start chasing Arthur to the real world, trying to recover the minute hand from him, and he ends up finding in his neighborhood a very strange structure, and I'm paraphrasing the best I can remember. He finds a structure that is made of spoilers. He finds a structure that's made of a whole bunch of different architectures. This is like sitting in his neighborhood for some reason. It like has Greek architecture, Egyptian architecture, Italian architecture, you name it. Roman, you got anything, you got it. Upon going inside, he lands on what appears to be the top of a large hill with a giant ornate door. From the door comes out a soldier who introduces himself to Arthur and says, "Welcome to the house," and specifically the lower house. And sunshine or light kind of bursts in, revealing a large city that surrounds this hill. Arthur is completely confused by the events, but he's told that he should certainly go. He definitely wants to go down and investigate. He can't really seem to go back to where he was. The gatekeeper telling him. The gatekeeper, telling him that he should probably keep that half of the key hidden. So, grabbing some clothes from the township, it's like I think like a white robe. He just puts over himself. He slides it through his belt, and he walks through the town, and discovers that all the people seem to be milling about in quite a huge hurry. All of them carrying different forms of paper. Papyrus, parchment, paper, stone tablets, you name it. But paper, all different types of paper and parchment. He ends up getting into an ink house where people are chasing him. He runs away, and one of the workers of the ink house, named Susie Turquoise Blue is her name, as for the ink she uses. She befriends Arthur and kind of helps him get away from the bad guys who are chasing him. And we discover through a series of events, and I can't remember because it's been so many years since I've read this book, but I remember the major gist of it. Susie reveals that she has found a small frog. And this frog, when examined very closely, has words and letters writhing all over its body. It is made of words, because what it is the first part of the will of the architect, which is taking the form of a frog. And what the frog says to Arthur is that he is the anointed heir of the house, and it is his duty to recover the 7 keys from the 7 trustees of the house, and to rule over all creation. That is his duty. Because where they are is a place called the house. The lower house being the lowest part of the house. There are 7 actual different sections of the house with 7 different trustees of the house, each given a certain key, which gives them power over their demis of the house. Arthur has but one half of Mr. Monday's key. He only has the minute hand. He needs Mr. Monday's hour hand to finish the key completely. Mr. Monday being the first trustee of the architect. The main reason for this is that the trustees did not fulfill the will of the architect. In the very beginning of this book, we get a short prologue explaining that the trustees did not want to fulfill the will of the architect for whatever reason, and they broke the will into the 7 respective pieces and hid it to the best of their power. Over time, the power of the keys and the magic of the house, it's changed them. It's molded their personalities to the point that the house itself is not functioning properly. And the purpose of the house is to record all the records of the secondary realms. Earth, for example, is a secondary realm. The house is simply responsible for the recording of it. The recording of said information. So Arthur has been tasked with finding it, and the Minute Hand does grant him certain powers. The Minute Hand has the ability to cause minor effects very quickly, whereas the Hour Hand individually can cause large effects, has the ability to do larger spells. For example, Arthur can freeze things using the Minute Hand. He can he can open small locks. He can do that sort of thing, using the magic of the house itself. Through a series of adventures, he finds a mariner. He finds a character called the Mariner. He finds the old one, and ultimately he makes it to Mr. Monday's kind of his little pad, shall you say. He finds his place. Words are a big thing inside the house. The power of words. Arthur and Susie go up to it. Susie, by the way, is a piper's child. She is not actually. The house is filled with denizens. They were the creations of the architect who work and run the house. But Susie is not a denizen. She is, in fact, a piper's child. She was brought there by the 3rd son of the architect, called the Piper. And there is the 1st son of the architect, who is Lord Sunday, the 2nd son of the architect, who is the Mariner, and the 3rd son, who is the Piper. You can kind of see where that's going. That's kind of a homage to the Pied Piper of Hamelin. And now I actually remember how they do it. There is an effect in the house called the improbable stair, where if you simply create a set of steps, even if you just draw them and envision the improbable stair, you will arrive there, and you can basically get anywhere in the house using this stair, and the power of the key will help with the power of a key. So using his Minute Hand, Arthur takes Susie and the first part of the will of the architect, and they're going through the different sets. They're going through these different ages and stuff, trying to find Mr. Monday's I forget what they call it, but it's like the place where he's relaxing, because nothing is getting done in the lower part of the house because Mr. Monday has been afflicted by sloth. Which is the direct antithesis of the purpose and value of the first part of the will of the architect, which is sloth versus diligence. I believe is the opposite, because it's always like, we have to keep going. We can do this. Come on, you can do it, Lord Arthur. You can do this. Keep calling him Lord Arthur, even though he's just a little kid. And they actually find where Susie came from, and we arrive at someplace in Europe during the Black Plague, and Susie's like, this used to be my house, and there's my family, and they're dead. Like, this book does not shy away from the gruesomeness sometimes. But they manage to find the entrance to where Mr. Monday is, and he's protected himself by flanges, where they're creatures who eat words. So he's given himself like the ultimate protection from the will. That if the will actually tried to get to him, each part of the will could actually intone the respective trustee to give up their keys. Because the ultimate purpose of the will was that the anointed heir of the house would come and he would take the keys. He would take all 7 keys from them. They just didn't want to do that. And there's actually a pretty good reason for that at least one character does directly know. He knows exactly why they can't do that. Or why they didn't want to do that. Arthur has to remove every bit of words from his body, including all the labels from his clothing and stuff, so he doesn't get eaten at all by these flanges, which he's able to pass through successfully. And there's Mr. Monday, he's under a sun umbrella. He's got, the lemons, the limes in his eyes, and he's just under a blanket. There's a magical intonation that you have to do. What is it? Minute by minute, hour by hour, 2 keys in 1, grant me the power. Which the moment he grants this, the hour key the hour hand flies from Mr. Monday's grasp, and we hear him roar in frustration, "No!" But Mr. Monday still has some control of the hour hand, and he's like, "Key, kill him!" And the key actually goes through Arthur's body and pierces his lung. And Arthur's trying to finish the last part of the incantation so the key will be fully his. Where is it? Oh, his antechamber, I beg pardon. That's what it's called. They're trying to get through his antechamber. Let's see. Oh, yeah, he has to say this. I, Arthur, anointed heir to the kingdom, claim this key and with it the mastery of the lower house. I claim it in blood and bone and contest, out of truth, in testament. It looks like he's going to pass out, but he manages to say the last thing. And against all trouble. And upon that moment, the hour hand removes itself from Arthur's body. There's like a magical thing, and the two keys fuse together to make a clock sword. The first key. And this automatically like heals all his wounds and stuff because he's kind of like the god of the lower house at this point. So basically nothing would really kill him. The first part of the will of the architect is like, now we have to fix everything, and that means get rid of Monday. And Arthur's like, he's still mostly human. Spoilers, he's mostly human at this point. He's basically completely human. And he pulls out the key and says, "Be as you," because the will is like, you can say, "Dust to nothing as you were." And Arthur's like, "No, we're not going to do that." He holds the key, puts it on Mr. Monday's shoulder, and says, "Be as you were when the architect was here." And the power kind of like overflows Mr. Monday, and he kind of goes back to the way he was upon his first creation. And he's like, "Please forgive me. Everything went bad, and it was my fault." The first part of the will, the architect says, "Screw you. You caused all these problems," and they kind of like imprison him. Arthur's, oh, that's right. There's a sleeping sickness that was coming over the people inside the town. I mean, his real town. And now I remember what the antithesis was of what he was running away from. That was being caused by each of the trustees of the architect has three kind of like little minions to help them. They're dawn, noon, and dusk. Monday's noon had come after Arthur, and he had brought with him all these Nifling creatures from the house, saying, kill Arthur. And the problem is they'd cause a sleeping sickness in his town, and so he's like, is there? And he turns to them. He turns to all of them. And is like, hey, I came here because I'm trying to figure out how to stop this. What do we do? And Monday's dusk comes forward. He says, "These were caused by Nifflers, weren't they?" Well, and he produces a small creature. If you put this on your windowsill back in the secondary realms, by the end of the night, it should take care of all the problems. Oh, that's what we do. And he's about to leave, but the first will of the architect is like, no, you can't take the key outside. You can't do that. And Arthur's like, why not? Because it's too powerful. The key has to remain here in the house so it has power, and you can control this demis and stuff, and that's your job. Like, no, I want to go and take care of this. I want you people never to talk to me again for a good long time. The frog relents at this, changes herself into a tall woman, calling herself Dame Primus, and says very well, and gives him an incantation that he can entrust the key to her for the time being until he returns. To which he does, and he returns to the secondary realms after kind of resituating the dawn, noon, and dusk. The dawn and noon are kind of jerks, and he makes the dusk the new noon. Going back, he's also given kind of like a magical telephone for his room that he can always call back to the house if he needs to, should there be any problems, and they can contact him if there's any problems. He puts the Nifflers out, and there's like stuff coming over the radio that the sleeping sickness seems to be going. It's great, and everything's better. And Arthur turns off the radio, and he's all happy and leaning back. And then the phone rings. On his desk, the clock reads 12:01, and it's Tuesday. If everything I just said was so confusing it's not even funny, do not feel bad. That is really what's going on here. There's so much information you have to get through and to understand what is happening here. And I liked it. It encouraged me to keep reading, and next time we're going to talk about the book that actually got me inspired to start reading this series. And I'll see you then. This is Firewizard23. Take care and bye-bye for now, everybody.